Alright, when we surf on internet, the core content on a website we usually find in the form of text. Addition to the text, HTML provides ways to add different type of media in the form of images, audio, video, etc. We can also embed content from other websites in the form of inline frames. For example, YouTube video, Google Maps, etc. We have been already talking from the beginning only that we can have different forms of media and content on our page. So today we are going to talk about different forms of media that we can have on our page. So let's get started with the images first. We have already seen how we can embed an image using img element as well as using background image property inside the CSS. Let's see once again. Images are the form of media that represents our content in the form of pictorial form, and it also enhances the design of the page. We already know to embed an image we use img inline level element. So let's have one img element on our page. So right now I have taken one index.html file with the standard HTML document, and inside the style.css file we have few normal styles. So, and I have also taken one image inside the media folder. So let's get this image, this football image inside our page now. So to embed an image we use img element. So let's have one img element, and img element comes with two important attributes, that is src attribute and alt attribute. The src attribute specifies the path of the image file. It is really necessary. Without defining the src attribute value, we cannot have one image. So let's define the path of this image inside the src attribute here. So we'll go inside the assets folder, then media, then football.jpg. Assets, media, and football.jpg. Now save it, go to our page here, then give it a refresh. Okay, so here we have one image that we have embedded just now. Now let's talk about alt attribute. Addition to the src attribute, the img element comes with alt attribute, which is alternative to the image. The value of the alt attribute must include the description of the image. For example, right now we have one football image, so the alt attribute will get the description of this image, that is football here. So we can write here football. The alt attribute is also necessary because it helps in search engine optimization. Also, if in case the image is not displayed on our page, then this alt attribute will display it, and the user can easily get an idea what type of image was there. Now let's see our page here, give it a refresh, no changes, because this alt attribute value is the alternative to text. If this image will not display, then this alternative text will be displayed. So right now let's make some changes in the path of the image file. Now save it, then give it a refresh. Okay, now our image is not displayed on our page just because the path of the image file is not correct, and so instead of that image the alternative text is displayed, that is football, which we have written here. Alright, let's get back into normal, save it, then give it a refresh. Here we have, now path of the file is correct. Alright guys, so this is how we can embed an image using img element inside HTML document. Now let's talk about how we can resize an image. By default, images are displayed on a page in its original size. For example, here we can see that this image is coming in its original size. So whatever the image size was by default 1440 pixel into 811 pixels. So this is the default size of the image. An image always displayed on our page with its original size. However, we can resize an image on our page. For that purpose we can take two approaches actually. The first approach is we can use width and height attribute inside img element, and another way is using CSS. Using CSS we can target img element, and then we can specify the width and height property inside the curly braces. So first of all, let's see the width and height attribute here. So here we have this image. First of all, let's collapse this. So here we have img element. Right now image is in its original size. Now let's define width attribute, say 300 px, and height also 300. Now save it and then give it a refresh. Here we have, as we have applied width and height attribute with 300 and 300, so now our image is in 300 into 300 pixel. So let's see here, the image size is showing 300 into 300, but its original size is 1440 pixel into 811 pixels. Now instead of using width and height attribute, we can also target this image inside our css file. So first let's get rid of this width and height attribute, save it. Let's see here, we have in its original size. Now let's target inside the css file. Let's say width of 300 px, height of, again this time let's say 600, actually something different. Now save it, then again give it a refresh. Alright, so this time we have the image of 600 into 600. Let's inspect it. Here we have, here also we can see we have defined width and height 600 pixel 600 pixel, and its original size was 1440 pixel into 811 pixels. So whenever we want to resize an image, we can take this approach. Either we can specify width and height attribute inside the img element, or we can target that img element inside the css file, and then inside the curly braces we can define the width and height property. While resizing an image on a page, always keep in mind that image always maintain its aspect ratio. That means specifying either width or height, the image will adjust its dimension on a page. For example, right now we are applying width and height both properties at the same time, but specifying just one property, either width or height, we can change the dimension of the image. So right now let's apply just width 600 px. Let's see here, we can see that as we have applied width property, then also height changes. It's just because the image always maintain its ratio. Whether we decrease the width, height will also decrease. If we increase the width, height will also increase. Let's increase the width here. Let's say 800 px. Now save it, then give it a refresh. So as we have applied width of 800 px, height also changes. If we inspect here, we can see that here 800 into 451, the height is 451 px right now. We can also do, let's apply just height. Now again image will maintain its ratio. As we have applied height only, width will also changes. Let's see here. Okay, so here we have height of 800 px and the width is in its ratio. Let's see here, see how much width we are getting. The width is now 1420 pixel. So this is how we can change the dimension of the image applying just one property. But applying both the properties, that is width and height, at the same time, image may loses its aspect ratio. For example, right now we are applying just height. Let's say again width also. So this time width, let's say 500 px, height also will say 500 px. Now save it and give it a refresh. Okay, so as we have applied width and height both 500 into 500, the image lost its aspect ratio, and that's why we are seeing this distorted image. So always keep in mind, if you will be applying both the properties at the same time, you will find a distorted image. So we can apply either of these properties so that image will always remain in its ratio. We will not see a distorted image. Alright guys, so this is all about img element that we are applying inside the HTML document here. Now let's add an image using background image property. So for that purpose, let's take one div here. Let's apply a class bgimg and we will target this bgimg. Then to this bgimg we will apply one background image. So bgimg will say some width, let's say 1200 px, and height also will say something, maybe 800 px. And now to this bgimg we will apply one background image. So use background image property. The background image property accept url function. These all things we have already seen. So let's apply the path media football.jpg. Now save it. Let's have a look here. Here we have that bgimg to which we have applied our background image. Here, background image. So these are the two approach that we can take to embed an image on our page. Both of these options works fine, but they have different use cases. The img element is used when the image is part of the content and holds some semantic meaning on a page. And the background image that we have applied here, the background image property is used when the image is part of the design and directly not relevant to the content of the image. So we can take both of the approach, but we have to keep in mind that whether our image is part of the content or not. If the image is part of the content and holds some semantic meaning, we will be using img element. But if the image is not the part of the content and does not directly related to the content, so we will be using background image property.